We have the one and only PRL Turbo Inlet Pipe for 10th Gen Civic 1.5 turbos with the beautiful titanium pipe in front of me here today. We're going to install it and put it to the test on the dyno. Why don't you join us? One of the best looking parts that you'll find in the engine bay for a bolt-on part here for the 1.5 turbo Civics. They also make this for the 11th gens. Keep in mind, this stuff is on our site, edgeautosport.com. Go check it out. I mentioned that we're going to put it to the test on the dyno. In reality, I really don't care what the dyno says because this thing is beautiful. I know it's more efficient anyway. I mean, it's pretty clear just by looking at it that it's a better intake setup than the stock kind of pancaked plastic piping. You know, the titanium is just such a beautiful piece in the engine bay. You can almost do it as an aesthetic upgrade, but it's far, far, far from that. PRL, along with the titanium piping, also includes this amazing cast aluminum piece here. I mean, this thing, this stuff is hard to make. There's a lot that goes into this. I don't even know the full extent of it, but I know it's just, there's a reason why a lot of companies don't do this stuff because it takes a lot to get this done. So it's got the PRL logo casted into here. Nice machining around where the bolts need to go. A little fitting for, you know, the blow-off valve, I'm sure, is what it looks like. I mean, this thing is, this thing's beautiful, and we're lucky to be able to have a part like this to install on the car, so thank you, PRL. But this is a very complete kit. It comes with fully customized, you know, ready-to-go silicone, not generic. This is specific for the car. Really, really thick silicone. You can tell it's like at least 4-ply here is just what I'm looking at, with a nice lining on the inside. This is a really nice piece of silicone. Same construction on this one as well. All the hardware. They even give you a new valve here that goes to the purge valve, I think is what it is. I can't remember exactly what that's for. I don't work on the car enough, but got all the hosing and everything, all the clamps, and of course they give you a little bit of swag here. So we're super pumped to get this on the car. And as always, like we always usually do, we do want to see what it does on the dyno, if anything. Sometimes stuff works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's better for certain situations and not others. We're just going to give you a good back-to-back comparison. What does the inlet pipe do? At the end of the day, we are going to install a big turbo eventually on this car, so I know this will be helpful for that. And another note, actually, they offer this in the big bore and the standard bore sizing for hooking up to a race MAF or a standard MAF housing. We have the big MAF housing, the race MAF, so we needed that one. At the end of the day, we chose that intake mainly because we're going to be having going big turbo eventually, so we wanted to extend the range of the MAF sensor voltage range. And if you never plan on doing a big turbo, you can probably get away with the standard sizing. There's not really an issue doing that. You're still opening up the intake quite a bit with any one of these kits and the standard intake from PRL. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and do our first baseline just to see where the car sits right now power-wise today, and then we'll swap this on the dyno. We should be able to install this on the dyno completely, and then we'll do another comparison of the new power levels. So let's get going. Remember, if you find this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button. And if you like this Civic content in general, make sure you subscribe. We do a lot of Civic stuff. Here is our baseline. We hit 234 horsepower at the peak, 274 pound-feet of torque at the peak of that curve. The curve looks really, really nice and smooth, which is awesome. That's kind of what we want for baseline pulls. So it doesn't look like there's any goofy stuff going on, like any timing getting pulled or boost getting pulled, any weird oscillations. So this is a really, really good baseline. This is actually the third pull we've done just to get the car kind of going, and it was identical from the second one. So it's a really good baseline. Car is happy right now. So we're just going to overlay this versus the PRL inlet pipe after we get that on and see what the difference is. As you can see, PRL versus stock is pretty different. The PRL comes up vertically a lot more than the stock one. The stock one kind of starts to bend right away, and the PRL one comes up right away, and then it kind of comes out back around to the intake a little bit harder. So probably just a little bit smoother transition overall. Definitely bigger, just, you know, noticeably bigger than the stock. So, and obviously more round than the stock. You can see the stock inlet pipe kind of pancakes right there. And then that's where the transition to the titanium will be in place. So much bigger, a lot less restrictive. Hopefully we see a lot less pressure drop in the intake system, which will allow the turbo to breathe a little bit better. So we'll see how hard it is to get this thing out. I remember the first time I pulled this thing out, it was a lot harder than the last time I pulled it out, which was just now. I've gotten pretty good at it. So this thing has been out several times. So if you are doing this, you might find it a little bit tricky to get out. Just take your time, make sure all the wires and vacuum hoses are out of the way, and just work it through. PRL's instructions tell you that you have, if you're having trouble, to take off a couple kind of components that make it easier. It would definitely make it easier, but you can get it out without doing that. So anyway, a couple things to transition over to the piping, the new piping. This little grommet right here to hold on, to mount the pipe to the car is reused. Otherwise, it looks pretty straightforward. So obviously we're going to reuse this little valve right here as well. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting this thing on. Now you'll notice also we've been using the Torque Solution blow-off valve spacer here. This vents it to the atmosphere. I know how much some of you guys love a vent to atmosphere blow-off valve on the Civic. We're actually going to just take this off for now. Partly maybe even just to avoid any fitment issues. I just want to make sure that we clear it the first time, and we'll probably just run it in the full recirc mode as it's intended to be used for now. And we'll actually be able to hear if there's any turbo sound differences. So anyway, excited to get this thing on. Let's get moving. PRL inlet is on the car officially. We are now a rolling PRL advertisement, just like I think 80% of the Honda Civics out there. But yeah, this thing is honestly beautiful. And as it sits in the engine bay, you know, fully installed, it's definitely a nice aesthetic piece. You know, to be perfectly honest, this thing, the fitment wise, it's probably harder to fit up than you would picture. But the simple fact is, you know, this piece is just bigger and bulkier, and obviously it has to be if you want improvement. It can be a tricky install for maybe somebody who's a novice with modifying. You know, you might need to plan on new clamps here and there, or new hoses for coolant lines here and there. You know, as another example right here, this is, you know, the vacuum line for the boost controller. Sorry, not the boost controller, the blow-off valve, sorry. And we just had to bend this a little bit out of the way because it was just coming straight onto this pipe right here. So little things like that, you know, just expect a little bit of a challenge if you're a novice at this, but otherwise, I mean, it's a beautiful piece and it certainly deserves to be looked at as a massive upgrade. So all in all, pretty happy with the results on the inlet pipe. I mean, there's not a huge change at the end of the day. Through about 5,000 RPM, the graph is pretty identical, which is great. There's nothing weird happening again. So it's a good, solid baseline matching dyno graph. But there is like a consistent, you know, 2 horsepower, 2 pound-feet of torque increase from about 5,000 RPM on. So, you know, sometimes when there's like little fluctuations, 2 horsepower here, 2 horsepower there, up or down, that's kind of indicative that it's not really, that's like negligible changes, but the curve is just sitting 2 horsepower higher towards the end from 5,000 RPM on. So actually that would indicate to me, just, you know, based on my experience, I think this thing is flowing a little bit more once you're flowing a lot of air through it. So there is a slight difference. And of course, with these cars, you really have to tune them to get everything out of them. We're gonna tune it and see if there was any differences that we could pull out of it based on just the inlet pipe. I don't expect there to be a ton, but we will let you know if that happens. But thank you for joining us on this video. It was fun putting on the inlet pipe. I've been wanting to put something shiny and pretty in the engine bay for a long time. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to us. We'd really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one.